Humza Yousaf is fighting to keep his job as First Minister of Scotland. He could face 2 confidence votes this coming week, in himself and in his government, following the collapse of its power-sharing deal with the Greens. I can speak now to a man who knows a thing or two about leading the SNP and holding on to the job of First Minister, which he did for 7 years. Good morning, Alex Salmond.
Good morning, Trevor, from springtime in Aberdeenshire.
I love it. I love it. I wish I was there with you. Look, the SNP is saying this morning that despite your generous offer, they won't be having a pact with you. How are you feeling about that?
Well, not too bad, really, because we're not proposing one. What Ash Regan will do in the meeting she's been invited to by Humza Yousaf, the First Minister, is make a set of reasonable proposals to help him out of a very tight corner and put Scotland back on a sensible governmental road, stressing the priority of independence for Scotland, the protection of women and girls in Scottish society, and a return of the government to the things that matter to the people: education, health, housing, and above all, the economy and jobs. These are the reasonable proposals that Ash Regan will be putting forward.
Can I just read out to you the response of the SNP MP Stuart MacDonald to your reasonable proposals? Here's what he says on Twitter X. Never question we could do a deal with Salmond, a former host on RT. It would go down like a bucket of cold sick with voters and be met with horror in European capitals. To cut a deal with such a figure as Russian bombs thud into Ukraine would be reputation shredding. Is that start of a negotiation?
Well, you know, Stuart MacDonald, I've always wondered if he really was an MP who cared about independence. I mean, you know, he cares a lot about European capitals. I think his former profession was a travel agent. But I think the really significant thing is he's not in the Scottish Parliament. He doesn't have to face the political arithmetic. And I think Stuart MacDonald should spend a little less time worrying about European capitals, a bit more time cooperating with fellow believers in independence for Scotland. Because what independent supporters want to see, whether they support Alba or the SNP or any other party, is they want to see the independence forces in Scotland cooperating together to try and get independence back as a priority in Scottish society. I'm afraid for Stuart MacDonald, I've never seen any indication that he thinks independence is a priority at all.
Do you think that you can reach any kind of agreement with the SNP while Humza Yousaf is in charge? And will he survive this Wednesday's vote?
Well, he's clearly in a very difficult position. There's no doubt about that. But, you know, Humza Yousaf wouldn't have sacked the Greens from his cabinet or his administration unless he wanted a significant change in direction. And therefore, I'm sure he's in a listening mode to listen to proposals on independence, on moving away from the identity agenda which has caused so much disruption in Scottish society, and of course moving back to the people's priorities of education, housing, jobs and industry. Now, there was an indication, I thought, on Friday when the First Minister announced a housing development at short notice in Dundee. That seems to be the sort of announcement that people in Scotland are wanting to see, you know, as opposed to the identity politics, cultural wars that have occupied so much bandwidth of the Scottish Government over the last few years.
Is your point that the SNP government, since you left it, has done a poor job on health and education and the things that, as you say, people in Scotland actually care about?
Well, there has been a preoccupation in recent years with things like self-identification, for example, and a lot of the parliamentary battles and arguments have been over that very, very divisive subject. And that hasn't, it seemed to me, left enough time to concentrate on the things that matter to the people of Scotland that we've listed, but also the things that should matter to any Scottish nationalist, and that's making independence a priority. I mean, if you look at the Butte House agreement that Nicola Sturgeon did with the Greens, I mean, bullet point 1 was independence. Well, there hasn't been much progress. And I think the first paragraph was on the climate change targets, and things haven't been going very well in that direction either. So if this is a move back to the issues of jobs, education and health and housing, then that's to be welcomed, and we'd be prepared to assist in that as long as independence is restored as a key priority of the Scottish Government.
What you got to say to get your support and for you to advise the MSP, Ash Regan, to support him in a vote of confidence on Wednesday? What do you need to hear from him?
Well, Ash Regan's conducting the negotiations as it should be, because she's the parliamentary leader of Alba in Holyrood. She's found herself in a highly influential position. And I think Scotland are lucky that it's somebody like Ash Regan who's in that position, because I know that she'll carry that forward with great responsibility.
She'll ask your advice, won't she?
Well, she has the Alba Party behind her, and our executives meeting this afternoon. Incidentally, the executive meeting this afternoon is really about election preparations, because Humza Yousaf has said himself that one possible outcome of this political crisis is there might be a Scottish election. Now, it's not the only outcome, it's not even the preferred outcome, but it's a possible outcome, and as you'd expect, the Alba executive are meeting to prepare for it just in case the discussions don't have a fruitful outcome.
But just to be clear, from where you are standing, if you don't get a satisfactory response from Humza Yousaf, whether in person or by letter or whatever it is, you would advise the party to support Ash Regan in voting against him on Wednesday?
Well, Ash Regan will be meeting Humza Yousaf in person. I mean, he's invited her to that meeting. She has accepted. She'll take with her what I think are extremely reasonable proposals about prioritising independence, moving away from the identity agenda and moving on to a people's agenda of jobs, housing, education and jobs. Now, I would hope that that's what Humza Yousaf wants to do, and therefore he'll welcome these proposals and welcome that support. But, Trevor, let's hope for a positive outcome from these discussions rather than anticipate a negative one.
But you won't be shedding any tears if he's gone on Wednesday, will you?
Well, I was interested in... I mean, a lot of people have attacked Humza Yousaf for sacking the Greens from his government. But, I mean, if we take away the personal relationship stuff between the Greens and the bad blood they have and all the rest of it, it does indicate that he wants to change direction. Now, if that is genuinely what Humza Yousaf is trying to do, he is running a minority administration. That's very difficult. When you run a minority administration, you have to reach agreement with at least one of the opposition parties. He's trying to do that.
Alex, I'm so sorry.
Will be putting forward reasonable proposals. Let's hope he accepts them.
Alex, I'm so sorry we have to stop now. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Not a problem.